Please help me. I need it very much. People don't understand. Hopefully you guys on Reddit will. It all started a month ago. A fellow 8th grader, who was named Luke Coleman, was killed in an accidental house fire. A tragic event, I know, but it gets a lot worse from here. You see, Luke had a friend named Nick. Nick was a decent kid. He had average grades and a likable guy. One more thing, that kid is me. Yeah, my best friend died. I cried when I heard the news. I cried when I was at his funeral. People tried to cheer me up, but I lost my best friend in the whole world. A few days ago, which would be about a month after his death, I started having these dreams. I would be surrounded by fire. Luke would appear next to me and tell me to join him. You have to understand that I am depressed. These dreams would end up with me waking up and crying. I wouldn't sleep the rest of the night. 2 days ago, I told my parents. They decided to set up a therapist appointment for next week. That night, I had the dream again. This time, however, there was no fire around me. I saw Luke and he bonked me to a door. I was about to enter in, but I woke to the sound of my alarm. I know, very anticlimactic, but I made more progress in my dream than the previous night. I got dressed and got on my school bus. When I arrived at school, I happened to see Sydney. We share a science class together. I remembered that Luke was also in this class. School that day was boring. I listened to Miss Kidman lecture on the parts of speech. Mr. Derrick taught us about scientific notation. In math, Mr. Jake explained to the class about vestigial structures. Mrs. Beecham made us read our essays about the Revolutionary War. I got home that night, and I went to bed. My dream was terrifying. It started off with me in the blank room with Luke. He beckoned me to the door, and I entered. Inside the door, I was in an extremely cold spot. Luke told me this is where he lives. I can't remember much detail from this room. I walked into the next room. It was full of dead bodies. I questioned Luke about this, and he smiled at me. He said it was his collection. I was freaked out. He told me to go to the next room. I didn't want to. I felt like I couldn't stop myself from moving. Upon entering the next room, I felt a blistering heat. Luke told me that he needed a new toy in his collection. I put my arm into the fire and woke up. I was freaking out. My arm was hurting. I ran into my parents' room. My mom turned on the light and asked me what's wrong. I held up my arm, and it was covered in burns. I'm currently at a hospital bed typing this on my phone. I told the doctors that I must have put my arm on something while I was sleeping. Anyway, I'm freaked out. What do I do about a dead friend who wants to kill me? This happened to me just 1 week ago, and I tell you, this is the scariest thing that has ever happened to me, and I will never forget it, even if I tried to. This experience will haunt me for the rest of my life. Even now, as I am typing this, my body won't stop shaking. I remember it like it was yesterday. My day started pretty normal. I woke up, went to school early, and started my daily ritual. You see, I have this hobby of going to school early and walking on the school grounds and through the school halls. Our school is just near our house, so it doesn't bother me that much. I just think of it as daily exercise. I arrived at school and went to our room that day early. And as usual, I'm the first one to arrive. So I went out of the room and started my daily exercise. I walked around the building first and went out to get some fresh air. I went back about 20 minutes later, and usually when I get back, I will see about 3 to 5 of my other classmates already there. So you can imagine my surprise when I saw all my classmates already there, sitting up straight, looking in front. So I hurried to my seat, put my bag down and sat. I looked at the front and was again surprised as my professor was already there, writing stuff on the board. What the fuck? I rumbled to myself. Something's not right here, I said. So I talked to my seatmate, Jessica, to know just what is going on. So hey, you're all here early, huh? I said. But she doesn't seem to hear me. Even our professor is early. Did he announce something last time? I continued. No answer. She was just sitting up straight looking in front. She was so focused that she didn't seem to move or breathe. So I asked again, hey, are you okay? Again, no answer. I looked around and realized that everyone was doing the same thing, sitting up straight and looking in front. At this point, I was starting to get creeped out, so I just looked in front and see whatever our professor was writing. He was standing up, straight-faced, back from me, and writing something on the board. I didn't understand it, but it looked like it was written in another language, so I just wrote it, and I decided I would just look it up later on Google. It said, Haek ipsa ok est somnium. As I put my notebook in my bag, I could see Jessica, my peripheral vision, looking at me. I looked back at her, and I was horrified as she was staring at me with her eyes wide open, and she was smiling. What the fuck, dude? I said out loud. I expected to see her laughing, but she didn't. What she did next was the reason I'm writing all of this. Her smile grew wider. It was like her mouth is stretching. At this point, she is smiling from ear to ear, literally. She was not done yet because, as I was staring at her and couldn't do anything, her head started to move. At first, she was staring at me sideways, but her head, it surpassed the normal head's limit. It was rotating clockwise, and I can hear cracking noises. Oh God. The noises. I could never forget. Her head stopped rotating, and it was now upside down. I screamed. I screamed my lungs out, but I still couldn't do anything. I started crying. My heart was beating fast. I tried to get up, but I couldn't. So I just looked away from her. I wish I didn't. I wish I just closed my eyes. I looked away from her and saw every one of my classmates in the same state, heads upside down, eyes wide, smiling from ear to ear, staring at me. Oh God, I could never forget that sight. I screamed again, and I was crying so hard that I could not breathe anymore. Our professor, I tried to ask help, but he was in a worse state. His body faced the board, but his head was staring at me, and it was upside down, eyes wide, smiling ear to ear, staring at me. I felt helpless. I just buried my face into my hands and faced my head down on my chair. I must have fallen asleep because I woke up with someone shaking me. I looked up and it was Jessica. I screamed. What happened to you? Jessica said. You were crying in your sleep and everyone was looking at you. She continued. I looked around. Everyone was laughing at me, even my professor. What were you dreaming of? Your grades? My professor said. Everyone laughed again. You should just go home for today and rest. I think you're too tired, he continued. I should have felt embarrassed, but I felt happy. Happy that everything was just a dream and it was all back to normal, or so I thought. I went home, into my room, and dropped my bag. Wait, in that dream I wrote something, right? I thought to myself. So I looked at my notebook, just in case. I felt my stomach twist when I saw it. Ad ipsa hoc est somnium.